Welcome back to the urban farmyard where this city girl goes country. In today's video I'm showing you how we work with little wildlings. Let's go take a look. Here at the Rescue Centre, one of the things we specialise in is cats and kittens who have been born in the wild. We are one of the few rescue centres that take wild adults and wild kittens, and we work with them to socialise them and to prepare them for adoption. Now these little ones, when they come in, are often extremely scared and extremely aggressive. When we pop them in a cage, they will often throw themselves against the bars and they will throw themselves at us, hissing, spitting, biting and clawing. So there's an awful lot of work that we put into getting them prepared to go into forever homes. When we bring in wildlings, the first thing we do with them is we always transfer them into a big holding cage. Now these holding cages are a good size, it gives them room to move around, but it's also a confined space, which means that they have to have contact with humans. What we do is we leave them there for the first 24 to 48 hours with basically no human contact. That gives them an opportunity to calm down and become used to their new surroundings. After 24 to 48 hours, we then start the rehabilitation process, and the way we start working with them is with food. What we do is we give our wildlings access to dry food and water 24/7, but meat is something that always comes directly from humans. We do not put it into a bowl. What I do is on the first day of starting their rehabilitation, I load food onto the end of a fork. Now I use a fork because it's got a reasonably long handle on it, which means that I can start to feed these cats from a little bit of a distance. That makes them more comfortable because they're not in direct contact with me, but also protects me from getting swiped. And I do get a lot of scratches and a lot of bites along the way. So what I do is load up the fork with lots of meat and I offer it to them from the end of the fork. Quite often I will have to sit there for a while until they get used to the idea that the fork is coming towards them and realise that it's got tasty treats on the end. Hello beautiful, I've got someone who's joining me in today's video. I will offer it to them and give them the opportunity to sniff it. Now on the first day they won't necessarily have the courage to take anything off the fork, but what I'll do is I'll spend 10, 15, 20 minutes persisting with them, seeing if I can get them to eat from the end of the fork. If they won't, then that's okay. I just take the meat away, I close up the cage and I try again either later in the day or sometime the next day. What I do over the next week is I get them to a point that they will happily eat off a fork, and what I find is they do tend to come around reasonably quickly and get used to eating off the fork. What I will then do is I will gradually transition them from a fork down to a teaspoon. So a teaspoon's got a much shorter handle on it, which means that they have to get a lot closer to me in order to eat from the teaspoon. I will start feeding them from the teaspoon, and once they've got to a point that they're eating comfortably off a teaspoon and have been eating comfortably from the teaspoon for a few days, I will then switch to hand feeding them. When I'm hand feeding, I am literally holding meat in my hand and I'm offering it to them. So at this point they need to get used to being in direct contact with me and eating off my hand. Once I've got them to that stage, then I'm going to introduce the next thing. It's my other hand and it's delightful pats. What I will do is I will offer them food from my hand and I will go in and I will pat them very gently on the head. Each time they accept my pats, we'll offer them some more food. Basically what I'm doing is I am offering positive reinforcement. I'm teaching them that humans are good and humans bring tasty food, so it's worthwhile spending some time hanging out with us. Each time I pat them on the head, again I'm rewarding them with tasty food. Now how long this takes really depends on A, how young or old the cat or kitten was, and B, how much contact they had had with people before they came into us. With really little ones, quite often I can go through the rehabilitation process and get them used to being around people in just a few days. But often with wilder adults, they will often be confined to a cage for several months as we get them used to being around people. Once we have them at a point where we can hand feed them in the cage and we can also offer them a really good pat, what we will then do is we get them out to be desexed, vaccinated and microchipped, and we then transfer them into our big room where all our our adult cats hang out. Now this is a full-sized room, about the same size as a bedroom, and this is where our longer term residents tend to hang out. What we do at this stage is we give them access to a greater number of humans. We have cat tamers, or we call them our cat tamers anyway. We have cat tamers who come in every day and they spend time with our adult cats. At this stage they're not hand feeding them meat anymore, but what we do is we hand feed them cat treats. The rule we have in this room is that you can give them as many treats as you like, but you have to feed them out of your hand. We don't ever put treats down on the floor for these cats because we want them to get used to being around people. At this stage, again, we're going to go through the process of hand feeding them treats, patting them and rewarding them with treats, and then we take them to the next stage, which is starting to pick them up and encourage them onto our knee. This is really the last stage of the process that we go through before we introduce them into a house. Once we've got these cats to a point that they are hanging out happily with humans in the main room, we then send them off to finishing school. Now, finishing school is basically coming into either my house or my rescue partner Tasha's house and hanging out with us for a period of time. At that stage, we're getting them used to being in a house environment. We're getting them used to things like vacuum cleaners and dishwashers, the hustle and bustle of everyday human life in a house, and we're also getting them used to sleeping on a bed. These little ones will be down in the house with us for anywhere from a week up to maybe a couple of months if it takes them a little bit more time to settle in. So how long does it take all up? Well, I would say this process takes anywhere from, say, about a week with a really young kitten and up until about 18 months with particularly aggressive older cats. It really is a labour of love, but I'll tell you what, it is really amazing seeing these little guys transform from super aggressive, very scared little ones and reaching a position where they can actually go off to their forever homes. This particular girl is a really good example of the work we do here. When she came in, she was super aggressive. She would throw herself at the cage, she would lunge at us, she would hiss and spit and bite, and after 6 months of work, look where we've managed to get her to. I hope today has been helpful, and I will see you back here tomorrow.